Hey you, welcome to the Human Design Podcast. This is Emma Dunwoody, your host, and I'm just jumping in to let you know about some really cool stuff for you. Now, if you've listened to this podcast for any length of time, you would have heard me support genetic matrix to get your chart. And you would have heard me say that you have to upgrade to get your 4 arrows information. Well, if you go to my website, emmadunwoody.com now, we actually have your chart available, including the arrows information for free. And as if that's not enough, we've also included a 4 arrows cheat sheet to help you integrate everything that you're going to learn here on the podcast. Pretty exciting, huh? Now, I also wanted to let you know about some exciting things that are going on at Emma Dunwoody World that is going to support you in your human design experiment. So first and foremost, let me ask you, are you enjoying the series all about the centers? I bet you are. These have been absolute game changers. I've received so much feedback on these series that we've brought to you, which are a really small snippet of the panels that we run in HDX. But let me tell you a little bit about HDX. What it is it's my membership. It's kind of a cross between a course and a membership. It's got 50 hours plus of videos. It's got endless copy and content, downloads, information. We have so many guest teachers. For example, we literally just did a class on the mammalian chart, so you can get to know your dog, cat, or horse. Pretty cool, huh? We have teachers on parenting, we have teachers on transits, we have teachers on so many things within HDX. But the ultimate purpose of HDX is to actually make human design simple. It's to create a community of people that can help each other rise up. It's also a place where you can get everything you need to not only support your journey and your experiment and simply integrate to finally earn more money, get your dream job, build your business, do a better job for your clients, whatever it is for you, but it also is going to support you if you want to help your family members, help your children, help clients with human design. It's completely set up as a one-stop shop when it comes to human design. And of course, it's me, so all the mindset stuff, the shadow stuff, the conditioning stuff, all of the behavioral work is in there as well. But of course, I integrate it all with human design, which is super exciting. The other thing that I want to talk to you about is my Unpack. So we have just upgraded the Unpack to turn it into a program just for you, a program for one, where you get to spend 60 or 90 minutes with me, where I'm going to unpack your chart. I'm going to bring all the patterns together. I'm going to tell you what I see intuitively. I'm going to share the patterns. But even more than that, after this session, and the session alone is a breakthrough session, you receive a PDF with all the details of your chart. But as if that wasn't enough, I've actually now included the journal, the breakthrough journal exercise that I use for my Purpose and Abundance program. The reason I've added this is because one of the things I hear so much from other people when they come to me is that they've had a reading somewhere else and yes, they resonated with it, but they just didn't know how to implement it in their life. Well, this exercise alone will transform how you live in alignment because you will become consciously aware of your design. So, if that all sounds exciting, then please check out the show notes for links. Now, on the podcast this month, stay tuned because, of course, we've got the transits, which is so exciting. We have some exciting new Millions of Millionaire program sponsors, which is going to be so fun. Some of them you might already know. Sharing these entrepreneurs, businesses, and services with you so that you can raise up your frequency, so that you can transform your life, and so that I can support businesses that I love and believe are going to help transform this planet. Stay tuned for so many other exciting things coming up this month. Now, on to the episode. Hey everyone, and welcome to the Human Design Podcast with me, your host, Emma Dunwoody. I'm a qualified master coach and human behaviour specialist, as well as being a qualified human design coach. And I work with clients every single day to answer the big questions. Who am I? Why am I here? And what is my purpose? I also assist them to transition from the person they think they should be to the person they really are on the inside. I teach people how to actually live their design instead of just knowing it. And if this is something that you want to do too, well, stay tuned or reach out for private coaching or Human Design Unpacks, where I show you exactly how to live your design. Before we get into today's episode, I want to just touch base and share with you an incredible entrepreneur that is also a part of our Millions of Millionaires sponsorship program. Sarah Wilder, welcome to this conversation.
Hello, thanks for having me.
So it's super exciting because you are one of our very first sponsors that are joining us to really create as many happy, valuable, impactful entrepreneurs out there. So thank you for being a part of the program. But one of the things I really wanted to do is to get to know you a little bit more, because I'm lucky enough to have known you kind of before the human design thing. But I'd love to really understand these incredible wearable totems. Is that right? Is that the best way I
Yeah, they're probably, like it's talismans, which is just obviously like a symbolic item that, it's kind of like a portal to a message or something that you're working with.
Yeah, I love it. And it's funny, I've actually I wear mine all the time and I love it. Even my kids have worn it. And my eldest is like, he quite likes jewelry. And I was so sure he'd be like, oh no, he won't like it. And he's like, no, it's really cool, Mum. I like it. And because he's an MG as well. So
I love it.
Yeah. So he's pretty pumped about it. So what was it that drove you to create these specific human design pieces? Because obviously you've made many things in the past, including a really well-known card deck, an animal totem card deck. You're well-known for your business and the products that you create. What actually drove you down the path of, or inspired you down the path of creating these human design talismans?
Yeah. Well, I got first introduced to human design when I had my gap year from my business, actually. So had complete burnout and just needed to have a break from entrepreneurship and single motherhood and all the things, that word I was in. And so, I stripped my life back quite significantly and just had a year of exploration. And during that year, I had my first human design reading. I saw a friend talk about it and I was like, okay, I'm interested. So down the rabbit hole I went. And I had a synthesized reading with Gene Keys and human design. And at the time, as with any new modality, it's overwhelming and it sounded really cool. And I was resonating, but I was like, but what do I do with that? Then I rebirthed my business. I already had elemental talismans. I then had astrology talismans. So it made sense for me to, since I was in that space anyway of understanding it myself, I wanted to create something that would have been helpful to me in that time, that when I was trying to understand what it meant to be a generator and doing the strategy and authority thing and remembering that piece, because if I was just working on that, as we know, it just everything magically starts to happen anyway.
Exactly.
And that's kind of what my pieces do. They are anchors for day-to-day reality things. Yeah. So, you have an intention of something you're focusing on. So if you are studying human design and wanting to understand yourself, then having these anchors daily to remind you of that work and bring you back into awareness of it is obviously going to get you faster results and pull you out of your head.
Yeah. I love that. And I think the thing as well that really stands out for me is that, and you touched on it as well, it is a really simple way to anchor back into what is important, especially when we first come to human design, because it's complicated. There's so many levels. There's so many things we need to learn. We all inevitably want to learn about all the freaking gates before we actually get anything else. And I think one of the really big things that's powerful is because each talisman, there's a talisman for each type or each aura. And it's just that reminder, as you say, of, what we need to focus on. And it's that strategy, it's that aura, like just being reminded and bringing us back into the body. And from a quantum physics point of view, we all know the power of intention as well. I think that's one of the things that even I've noticed with it. Someone who's been running the experiment for ages, like just wearing it, literally, I found myself, I'll tap it. And I've noticed myself just tapping it when I'm coming back into my body or grounding. So I thought, like, that's really weird. But I think, again, this is quantum physics. This is how things work. And it set that intention to really help people ground back into the simplicity, like out of the head. And we have to learn with the head, absolutely. But it's about the integration piece. And I think that's what's really beautiful about these talismans, is that it really helps you with that integration, the simplicity of, if you just stick to that strategy, if you just know that, if you just practice that, then you're going to have results faster and get it, inverted commas, a lot faster.
Exactly. And in this day and age, we're so overwhelmed. It's like, the information overload constantly. And I know personally, I can get really chaotic in my day and get pulled in 1,000 different directions, procrastinate heavily, like, all those typical things that feminine entrepreneurs seem to journey with, and generator types and manifesting generators. So just even me having a daily practice where I go, what was the talisman I'm wearing? Oh, it's this. It's okay. I'm going to ground and create a moment to just come back to that as the center focus point and go, oh yeah, that's right. This is where I'm going. This is what I'm doing.
I just got goosebumps. I just got head to toe goosebumps.
Yeah.
So for everyone out there listening, obviously Sarah and her incredible talismans are there for you to pick up. We have a special code. What's the code for us, Sarah?
HD podcast.
Beautiful. So all you have to do is follow the link in the show notes and it will give you a beautiful discount. It'll send you to these amazing talismans and really support you in your journey to integrate your human design. Thanks so much, Sarah.
Thank you.
Hey, everyone, and welcome to today's podcast. Now, today I am super excited to share a guest with you because this is someone that was completely unknowingly a part of my pivotal change. So welcome, Bob Doyle, to the podcast.
Thanks, Emma. Well, now I'm all kinds of curious.
I know, right? So
you did that on purpose. It was a perfect tease.
Exactly. So for my listeners will know this, but at the age of 28, I was diagnosed with depression and panic disorder. And I found myself in the office of an expert, in inverted commas, who said, you will never heal from this, but you'll learn how to manage it. And that was a pivotal moment in my life that I was like, well, bullshit. It's either I don't heal from this and I don't do this life thing anymore, or I find a way to heal myself. And it wasn't much longer after that I discovered the incredible movie, The Secret. And I remember watching it going, oh my God, this is what I felt inside of me for years. And it's like hearing all of these people who really are experts talk about this. And I know like today we talk so much more about the science, but back then we weren't so much talking about the science. But like with The Secret, how did that sort of impact your life? Like how did it get everything rolling? Like did people think you were crazy, woo-woo and out there, or was it something that kind of catalyzed?
Well, it's like this. First of all, my approach to the law of attraction from the beginning was always very practical and science-based. Like, because as much as I wanted to just let the woo-woo take me, and like, because I could get the energy and the vibration, I got all of it intellectually, but I still had some wiring in there that said, come on, you need more than all of this. And so I just did a lot of research and study and then I started reading about like the quantum physics of our thoughts and stuff like that. Anyway, that was enough science for me for the lights to go on to have some some ahas around it. So, but in my real life, I don't really go around talking about it, and I don't talk love. And even back then, it's not one of those things that I would go out and give people an opportunity to think I was crazy. Like there were people who knew what I did, but I didn't. I wasn't like evangelical about it. Yeah. I was just doing my life and I was teaching my stuff, and my tribe was online. I wasn't worried about my family or my friends thinking I was just Bob to them, and I always will be. So I never got any of that, I think maybe my sister cocks your eyebrows at me every now. I think what it is people just don't get it. So they just leave it alone since I don't push it on them.
Yeah. And I think that's really beautiful because I feel like it was something that was such a catalytic moment for all of us that were like, and the listeners to this podcast and my experience, like very similar to yours, like it comes from a science-based wanting to understand. And then I kind of had no choice, but I transitioned into human design. Like the universe just decided this is the way I was going. So yeah, I love that. Now, I want to talk a little bit. I really want to dive into, I know you guys have a quiz, but because I want to dive into change specifically, because I know my background is I'm a behavioral coach, and the biggest challenge is change itself. Like we know we can do it. We innately know it's in there, but we trip ourselves up at every corner. So I want to get into that a little bit. But before we do, because this is the Human Design podcast, I want to talk a little bit about your design. And I know you've had a reading, but it's probably a little while ago. So for the listeners out there, Bob is an emotional manifesting generator, 1-3 profile cross of penetration. So what this really means, Bob, is that you're really on the planet to what I would say blow shit up. So get inspired and then bring it into the material plane. And I really feel like you've kind of done a lot of that. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, well, being creative, if that's what we're talking about, like bringing creative ideas into the world, is absolutely what drives me. Yes.
Yeah, I love it. And even as a cross of penetration, so a cross of penetration, one of the really cool examples of this cross is Nikola Tesla. So it's this energy of people who have come in to sort of like kick stuff off, like to really start to get things going. And you've got this energy of a 1-3, which is someone who's an investigator and details, but also having the experience. So very much here to teach people those experiences. Now, one of the things that I really want to talk to is, and again, because in my experience over my 20 years of healing and growing and all of those things, one of the things I think people find the biggest challenge with is they know they can change, they can get all the knowledge, they can learn all the stuff, but it does come down to this integration piece. I talk a lot about integration here and how we've got to get everything aligned. We've got to get the mind, the body, the soul aligned, because if we don't, that's when we find ourselves starting to create all these belief systems about I can't change, it doesn't work for me, all of those sort of things. So I know that you've actually got these archetypes of specifically how our personalities potentially work, or how we specifically change. Do you want to start to talk a little bit to that?
Sure, because so my work now is more about neuroplasticity and the fact that our brains can change and creating that kind of lasting change and biologically more than sort of the energy and getting the law of attraction right kind of stuff. So I've shifted towards that scientific piece, on purpose, because it's just much more easily understandable and I don't have to explain all the complicated stuff. It's just your brain can change. So how do we go about changing it? Yeah. So for me, it's people are challenged by this, and it's interesting because what we're really talking about here is just learning. So when we learn anything, whether it's, a new language or to walk or talk, it creates these neural pathways in our brain. We learn and our brain changes as a result from it. And the stronger the wiring is, the more autopilot that behavior, more effortless it becomes. And so when we take on a task like learning a new thing out in the world, somehow we're ready for the challenge. Like we know we're going to have to, it's going to be downfall. We're going to make mistakes and things like that. But if we're really committed, we're going to finish it. But when it comes to our own personal development and our own personal growth, we seem to have a different set of rules. And in some way, I kind of blame the industry because they've sort of packaged up, they make these kind of crazy promises for transformation and results and things that they can't possibly make, because transformation is all about rewiring. Right? Mm-hmm. I mean, if your life is going to change, your brain has to change so that you can process things differently, make different meaning, make different decisions, take different action, get different results. That takes time, and we have to, and growing and discomfort and all of those things. And if we could just learn to shift the thought that if it's uncomfortable, it means we're not supposed to do it, into hooray, yes, we're growing, we're learning, yes, then it would change everything. But we have learned, again, we are wired to get disappointed in ourselves if we don't reach some, arbitrary metric. whether it's that we made up or that the guy on TV made up or your friend said, and then if we don't hit that, then we make it mean all this stuff.
Yes.
And how we make it mean stuff is all based on how we were wired in the beginning. So there's so much going on that rules our behavior, all those intricate little things, the looks on people's faces that you made mean something as a kid that became permanent wiring that now is the lens through which you see the world. But if you can really get, like you were saying, we all know we can change, but do we? I mean, I think because it's like we know that change is possible on some level, but for ourselves, when it comes to ourselves, we have all these stories about why we can't. And those stories that we tell ourselves keep us stuck and keep that true for us. So when we change our stories, and we really change our stories, then we can start to change our wiring and all of this and everything that comes with that.
Yeah. I think this is so powerful. We talk a lot about this on the podcast because it's actually one of my real bugbears as well. Like this misconception that everything should feel easy if we're in alignment. And that's just not true, because when we get outside of our comfort zone, we're uncomfortable. And when we're uncomfortable, that means that change is happening. So yeah, like I rant about this a lot. And, one of the things that I'd love to hear your opinion on, like, how can people tell the difference between being maybe out of alignment and out of their comfort zone? Because this is something that I know from my audience, for the people that I work with, we do a lot of work around. Like, you don't need to get really comfortable with being uncomfortable. And through the frame of human design, we talk a lot about, we've got these internal guidance systems that can help us. So I know my gut says it's a green light, although my ego is going, oh my God, run in the opposite direction. So could you talk to that a little bit? Like, how do we tell the difference between out of our comfort zone and out of alignment?
You may not love my answer.
That's cool. Go for it.
The reason is because I think that if people focus too much on that, like, or am I out of alignment or what, then they stop themselves and it becomes another reason to slow down. If they have a vision and it feels freaking great and they know that that's something they want to achieve, and if they can picture themselves loving that on the other side, then they just need to be they are signing up for the ride. Yeah. You can't be that person with all that success without the experience that came with it. And that's the sort of magical thinking that a lot of just pure law of attraction people have. It's like, well, I'm going to manifest this and it'll just be there. But you can't maintain that if you are not the person who will maintain it. And to become that person, you have to do some growth. There's a journey. There's mistakes you have to make. There's lots of feedback. There's ups and downs and the whole thing, just like every other thing you learn that is worth learning. But it's worth it if your vision is worth it.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love that answer. Totally. And I think that this is the piece. And sometimes through the frame of human design, we talk about these things called strategy and authority. They're two of the way the universe talks to us, the way we talk to the universe. And often when people come to human design, they get stuck on it. They're like, am I getting this right? And I'm like, for goodness sake, you've been unconscious to this up until this point. Who gives a shit if you're getting it right? Now you know something you didn't know. Practice it. Get it right, get it wrong. And exactly as you say, like, where are you going? And I couldn't agree more. I think that people are so stuck up on, getting it right, being in alignment, taking the right next step, like all of these things, as opposed to visioning forward and going, okay, well, who do I want to become?
You will get there so much faster if you take a bunch of wrong next steps than waiting to make the right next one.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that's really powerful. So let's talk. I'm really curious about these archetypes. So tell me about
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, don't be sorry.
I got derailed completely before, so sorry.
It's all
Here we
good.
go.
So tell us about these archetypes.
Yes. So these archetypes, or these transformation personality types, I made those up based on 20 years of coaching people and speaking. And these are the types, these are the behaviors that I've seen over and over and over that can stop people. So I say it that way because, you're most likely going to test for one of these types if you take the quiz. And one day you might test for one and one day you might test for the other. So there's nothing like rigid about it. It's there to expose behaviors that you'll recognize as your own, and they either will or will not be stopping you. But if they are, you'll know it. Yeah, so taking the quiz is just an opportunity for you to shine a light on some autopilot behavior that you may not be conscious of. That's key, because if you're going to change your wiring, you have to kind of know what your wiring is that you want to change. You need to recognize what it is that is causing you to not take action or take the wrong action or whatever it is, so that you can change that. New behaviors, new wiring, new results. So the quiz just helps you do that in about 60 seconds. It's all just multiple choice, and they go through and then they say, you're this, and then we give them their type and the traits that might be causing the slowdown, and then some suggestions for what they can do with that. It's not about changing your type. It's just about working with it.
And I love what you said as well, that there's no rigidity to it, that on a different day, you could be a different person. And I think this is so important, again, like, because I work with this modality that is for and as I said, my background is behavioral coaching. So I'm certified in every bloody profiling thing there is. And one of the big things that I don't like about all of that is that it puts people in boxes. And that's one of the things with human design that I'm like, this is an experiment. It's not who you are. It's an experiment. And you can work with it, but you have to decide what's true for you. So I love that as well. The other piece I have to talk to that, again, we talk a lot about on the podcast is this big gap. Like, we have to learn how to find ways to make the unconscious conscious, because as long as it's unconscious, we can't change it. So I love that. I love that this is another tool that can really help us go, okay, cool. What am I not seeing? So tell me about the archetypes.
Okay, so I'll try and be as brief as possible while still explaining them. And if you're listening to this podcast, see if you can hear yourself in one of these four. And again, you might hear yourself in several. I definitely am a combination. And again, on any given day, just depending on what's going on, you may see some of this in yourself. All right. So the number one type that people test for is the seeker type. And that makes sense that I would attract those people, because I'm in this industry where people are looking to improve their lives, right? So the seeker, though, is very excited about changing their life. And then they're so excited, in fact, that they try everything that comes along and follow every guru or whatever. Maybe not every, but a lot. They get inspired by the next little shiny object or this promise or that. Many reasons why they sidetracked, but something that they were resonating with so fully, now this is more resonating and all of that. So what happens is if they've started any sort of new behavior pattern, if they started any sort of new wiring, they're likely to tear it down with a new philosophy or a new approach or whatever. So nothing really gets solidified, or they've got all these beginnings of ideas in there and they're scattered and they're unconsciously trying to resolve all of them and all of that. So it just creates a lot of chaos in the person. And that's why they get these chaotic results, because they're probably, with all of that chaos and wiring chaos, the way that they are being in the world is probably not very consistent either. And you can't get consistent results if you're not consistent. You certainly won't rewire yourself. So that's the seeker type.
I definitely think I've fallen into that category a number of times.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's the most common one by far. So another one is the skeptic, which is what I would have tested for. And again, there's nothing wrong with being skeptical about things. It prevents you from doing a lot of dumb stuff. But what I'm talking about is the person who basically cuts off every opportunity for themselves to grow because of the way they filter opportunities through their skepticism. So the type of skeptic I'm talking about filters everything through the question, why won't this work for me? And if you ask that question, you're going to get answers. Of course, you can get those answers. But the same skeptic can still remain a skeptic and ask a different question and ask, how could this work for me? They're still evaluating. So they still get to be like, not the idiot. I'm not just going to fall for everything, because there's a lot of that in the skeptic. They don't want to be taken advantage of. They don't want to look stupid. All of that stuff is also there. So it's a lot easier for them just to say no to everything, so they don't have to be wrong about something. Right? But if you can ask yourself, how could this work for me? You'll get those answers.
Yeah, I love that. And this is something we talk so much about on the podcast, like ask better questions. And the thing I love about that as well is that you're not at any point, like a skeptic is going to be someone who is quite attached to potentially being right and having things be a certain way. So it's also super helpful just to flip the question so that they don't have to like completely shift their identity just to change.
They still get to be a skeptic. They just ask a more empowering question. And it doesn't mean that everything is right for them, but if you say, if you're always asking what's wrong with it, you're always going to find an answer. You're never going to find the thing that is right. And therefore you will justify not growing.
Exactly.
So, and it makes no sense either. Yeah. So a third type is the wizard. And the wizard, a lot of the people who traditionally kind of just are just all about law of attraction and vision boards and visualizing, and that's where it kind of stops. They're very much into the ritual, they're into the energy, they're into the vibration, they're into all of that conversation. And this is how I would have co-tested, by the way, because even though I was a skeptic, because I grew up, my mom was a teacher, everything was just very analytical and, all of that. As I was learning about all of this and opening my eyes to the energetic nature of the universe and stuff like that, like I got it. That's what I was saying. On an intellectual level, I got it, and it was inspiring me to learn more. I just wanted that other breakthrough. So but the wizard, the problem is they do all the ritual and they feel real good and they post their memes and they do the whole thing, but it doesn't move them into action in terms of being the person that they're visualizing all the stuff around.
Yes.
We get into trouble when we only visualize the stuff in the external. And I always tell people to reverse it. You need to decide who you want to be and then decide what do they want.
Yes.
Because what you want right now might be based on fear and lack and all kinds of stuff. And there's a bad energy around that, and it's going to affect the way that you be in the world. But let's imagine you are the person who's already succeeded. You hear about act as if and all that, but I'm taking it to a different level. Let's just imagine that you've already succeeded in all of those things. What does that person now want in their life? What is motivating them? Let those be your desires and act out of that. You'll just speed the process up so much the more that you can mirror the behaviors of your future self now. And you'd be amazed at how many you can do that you don't have to wait for the external conditions.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And this has been a game changer in my life, an absolute game changer. Like being able to feel into that future me and what I want to, who I want to become. Was an absolute game changer. And I think the wizard, oh my goodness, I feel like it's every second person. And it was, I would say, almost that energy for me. Although I imagine at some time I would have tested that way. There will also be a part of me that's like, if I'm not taking actions, then things aren't happening. But that there is this real, what's the word? Like contradiction out there in the personal development world. Like, should I take action? Should I not take action? Should I feel good? Am I not meant to feel good? And there's all this confusion, So I think one of the things that's really important, I know for me, like part of my mission is putting everyone back into the driver's seat to become their own guru, like
absolutely
do the experiment, get the results. Does it work for you? Like I'm always talking about reconditioning. People talk about deconditioning, but we're always going to have an unconscious mind. It's always going to be running the show. So we want to recondition it. And like you say, rewire it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, and to be, you got to sign up for the journey.
Yeah.
Your brain, this is all volumes of things that I would teach to explain the law of attraction. And now I just have one sentence. Your brain can change. Like that's irrefutable. That's out there. There's nobody debating that. Okay. So it's like, and what is and we know how the brain changes. Consistent repetition, same information over and over. So what we can learn whatever we freaking want, if there's not something physically wrong with our brain, we can go from no knowledge about a thing to all knowledge about a thing if we're committed. And all those people who have succeeded in life, they did the same thing. They did what it took to acquire the knowledge to get there. They didn't look at a vision board, close their eyes and wizard their way there. They learned, they spent money, they invested time and energy and all that to become that person who now has those things, who now manifests, if you will, the life that they have. But it was a result of being that person through taking action out in the world. And that's not to look, the thing about that is for some people, it's like, well, that's a bummer. I got to do stuff. That's learned too. But the journey of it, the action of it can be the juice. Yeah. Like it doesn't have to be the final destination. That's the juice. The learning can be, because that's where all the rich stuff is happening anyway. That's where it's really happening. And then it allows you to have that end destination. And by the way, when you get there, you're going to be ready for the next thing.
Yeah.
And the good news is if you got there intentionally by rewiring yourself intentionally, you're going to know already when you get there that this next thing you want, you're going to attain. Because you can do it. You can just keep doing it. And so then, and this is what I keep telling everybody, I'm not anti-law of attraction. It is what it is, and it is doing what it's doing. It's when we obsess over it that we screw ourselves up. It has no impact on the law of attraction. But when we're just being who we need to be and doing the things we need to do, the law of attraction is going to just do what it needs to do to bring you those things to react to. But we don't have to force that, and we don't have to make it happen and wonder why it's not happening. It'll happen exactly when it's supposed to happen, as long as you are presently being that person on an ongoing basis.
Yeah. So beautifully said. So beautifully said. And I think that the journey is everything. Like I started this podcast saying, like I was at a pivotal point in my life where I was either going to take my own life or I'm going to learn to heal myself. And today I feel like I'm living the dream, like we've created an incredible reality, my husband, my kids. And does that mean that everything's super easy? No, it's not necessarily super easy, but it's super fun. And I love the challenge, and I love to do all those things. I think one of the big things for me, I remember when my business grew, pretty fast. Like there was lots of growth for years and years and years. And then my business grew quite significantly from 2020 to 2020, the end of last year. And one of the things that I was really aware of in that time is that I was more focused on who I wanted to become, the impact that I wanted to have, than, and I'm going to put inverted commas because reality isn't true, than what was going on out there. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that, I've talked a bit on the podcast about recently is like, I can now see, it's almost like I can see my in-laws matrix, which is very different to mine, and I can see mine, and I can see other people's reality. And I really think that this is where we're going. I've just finished watching Bruce Lipton's The Great Convergence event that he did, which is just mind-blowing. And I think one of the things that we all have to be aware of is that we're stepping into this time where how we want to feel and who we want to become is so important, because it's not just serving us, it's serving the entire planet and this change that we're going through.
It absolutely is. And this reminds me to say this now at this point, there's this whole thing about us asking the universe for stuff, right? That's the conversation that the law of attraction is. We're going to just ask the universe for it and it will deliver, whatever. My contention is that, first of all, of course, it's not us and the universe. We are an integral part of the universe, where it's all this one thing. But the universe, if you will, came certainly way before us in this form that we have. In my mind, it is the universe asking of us. We are birthed into this reality, to this human experience, and we have these passions, and we have this vision, we have this thing, these ideas that are pulling us. Those are our gift from the universe. That the universe, if this is the only time, this is as woo as I'm going to get, the universe wants us to go have and fulfill and experience, because it is through us and all of these senses and all of it that the universe experiences itself. So it makes sense, if you're a logical person, that you would want to create a great experience. And that is what the universe wants for you. And guess what? We're born with everything we need to make it happen in this one brain. Because no matter what environment we're born in, that's the big challenge, because that's what's going to do that programming. But that doesn't take away from the fact that you could put whatever in there and shape it however. So unfortunately, for a lot of people, they're born into, conversations of lack and limitation, and it's probably most people, right? And that's how we're wired. And so as adults now, if we discover personal development or we learn that something else is possible, now it's all about going to get coaching and unwinding all that stuff. It's basically about rewiring the original programming. But some people are born into environments where their passions are nurtured and all of those things, and you see them out there, and they're living the dream, they're doing great, there's smiles on their face, but they got the same human brain that we do. And whatever it is that they learned, we can learn it too. Yes. If we want to, if we're committed to doing it, and if we can if we can create a vision for ourselves that inspires us, that we go, wow, we got to make it non-negotiable. That's the bottom line. When we learned to walk, it was non-negotiable. When we learned all these things, that we made all those mistakes and made, whatever, it was non-negotiable. That's why we kept doing it. Yeah. If it was negotiable, we'd probably quit. But if we can make our goals as non-negotiable as walking, then whatever, the stuff comes, it's feedback, we adjust, we keep going, we feedback, adjust. We don't have to make it mean anything negative at all, but we do because we learned to. But that's the only reason we do it.
Yeah, I love that. you know, the mantra that when my business took off, the mantra that I told myself every day was be prepared to do what other people are never prepared to do. You know, like it was just like, be the best version of you, but be prepared to do those things that others aren't. And I think that was the thing that because when I first set that intention to become that person, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to work hard. I'm going to have to this and I'm going to have to that. And my ego had all these perceptions of what that would mean. But all it meant, like the biggest thing for me was vulnerability, honesty, truth, just keep going, you know, trust my gut. Like it was all these much softer things that were actually the biggest challenges. It was never the doing or the showing up or the getting it wrong. And like in my design, I'm a line free, you're also a line free. So we're experimenters. We get lots of shit wrong so that we can get lots of shit right. So there were lots of mistakes per se, but I never, like that never stopped me. And I think that this is the piece, is that when we can fall in love with the growth itself and understand, like we can create heaven on earth. Like you say, that's what the universe wants us to do, to create heaven on earth. We're not going anywhere else, people. This is it. So starting to really understand, like, what does that mean for me? And like you say, like turning up for yourself every single day to get and become that person. And like you said as well, like I've achieved such massive things in the last few years. And every time I achieve a specific goal, it's like, wow, there's this other thing that's just kind of coming up on the horizon. And I'm like, all right, I'm willing. And I do tend to throw myself in too much. As I said, I'm just recovering from shingles. Yes. And I will eventually learn this lesson. But I think that I love that, you know, like we can rewire our brain. We can be whoever we want to be, but we have to stop telling ourselves bullshit stories that disempower us.
Yeah. Look, again, if you think about the nature of the universe itself, another thing we know is, to the best of our knowledge, is that it is expanding, always infinitely expanding. And let's remember that we are a part of it, which means that we are also made to expand too. So if we stop our own expansion with our nonsense stories, that's when we feel it. That's when depression and resentment and anger, 100%. Hostility, all of these things happen because we can't express who we feel that we cannot express the person that we are here to be. So we take it out on the rest of the world, basically. It's like when it's why teenagers rebel. You know, they got to do everything they wanted when they were 3, 4, 5, and then there's more and more restrictions. Then they get into high school or whatever. Now you're going to do this. Of course they rebel because they don't have, they can no longer express their creativity. They get pushed down for it. They're ADHD, they're whatever. They're labeled all these things. So it's no wonder we're set up to wire ourselves into this limiting belief system.
Yeah, which does beg the question, which is a much bigger conversation. Like, how are we going to change this? Like, it's a big conversation that, I mean, we haven't even got onto the 4th archetype yet. And I really want to talk about, you know, like, can we change at any age? I want to talk about that. But, you know, the education system is something that is not serving people. But I'm going to swing around back to, go ahead.
Let's get back to it, because it is most definitely a wiring conversation, this education system, and that's why kids are struggling right now. But if we can revisit that, we'll get the 4th type out there.
Let's do it.
Which is the people pleaser. And it pretty much is probably self-explanatory, but it's the people who are, you know, they saw the secret or they did something and now they're just going to be that person. They're going to have that life, and they get excited and they start maybe talking about it or being it. And then the people around them are not on board. Yeah. And they can express it in a number of ways. They could come right out and say, what are you doing? You're crazy. You can't do that. Or that's, you know, what about any number of things? It could be mom has a tone in her voice. Dad has a look, the neighbor, that y'all know what I'm talking about. So it's now the people pleaser that I'm talking about lets that stop them.
Yeah.
And I've dealt with so many of these people who, just to make everybody else comfortable, they basically give up on their dreams. But the thing is that nobody's really comfortable. They think, because they're not telling them anymore, they're not expressing their discomfort to them because you're not to you anymore, because you're not poking at that. But believe me, they're uncomfortable, or they wouldn't tell you why you can't follow your dream. And of course, you just gave up on your dream for some undetermined amount of time so that they could all just be happy or whatever. But you just basically committed spiritual suicide, because you're here to be this thing and do this thing. It's in you. You know it is. That's why you dream about it all the time and you think about it and you see people doing it. You come to tears with inspiration, because that's why you're here. But mom's going to give you a look, so I'm just not going to do it. And so you're just going to live that. And of course, that's going to breed resentment and probably disease and all kinds of other things.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of people pleasers out there. I think that
there are.
Especially women, like we have been so conditioned just to do what we're told and, like step aside. And I think that this is a time where, both men and women are all learning to balance that masculine and feminine and really step into their magic. So, let's blow that shit up, please.
Yeah.
I love it. So, and I love that you said, I'm just going to reiterate for the listeners, remember that you are not one of these archetypes. You can fall in and out of any of these archetypes, and they're just tools that are going to help support you to uncover something that's potentially unconscious at that time and heal it and move through it.
Yep.
I love it.
Anything, any insight you have onto autopilot behavior that isn't serving you is going to be valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and talking about autopilot, and we'll come back around to the education piece because I have a 14-year-old and a 10-year-old. So education is a big subject for me. Mm-hmm. But I'm really curious about, oh God, the question just popped out of my head. Nope, it's just gone. So let's come back to education. So it'll come back to me. So when it comes to education, I'd love to hear, like, what do you think would be the powerful shifts? I mean, we're dealing with something that I often refer to the education system as the Titanic. Like it's big and it's clunky and it's really hard to turn around. So what would your advice be as, for a parent that has kids out there? Like I know for me, my children are like, the biggest thing for my kids is that they are themselves, that they are, I literally just had parent teacher with my 14-year-old, and the English teacher said, Cooper is the reason that I teach. This kid, he's new to the class. He's new because we've just moved somewhere new. He's got in with the kids that are the biggest, boisterous, loudest kids in the class. And on day one, he's answering questions. He's giving his opinion. He's engaging in the class. And he's literally turning this entire classroom around because he's not afraid to be himself. And this is a thing for me. Like if we could just empower our children to believe in themselves, to love themselves, to know that they are completely imperfect, they're never going to get it right all the time, that it's all about playing the game, like just give it your best shot. This would be incredibly powerful, but our education system isn't set up to support them. So
no, it's not. And so when you get those free thinkers in there, they get labeled and they're the problem. And this is a generalization, I know, but that there's truth in that. But I think one of the bigger problems is that I think probably like the generation starting with, let's say my kid, the millennials, right? Their brain has been trained completely different than ours. So different, so drastically different in how much information is coming at them. All different kinds of information ongoingly. And then with the devices and the games, which we have vilified, but sorry, they're the future. You can vilify them all you want. You put them in their hands. And now they're playing these games that are teaching them thinking in ways that help them win the game, right? Help them accomplish a goal. They're like my son, when he started playing games where there's inventory and crafting and all that, when my games were just shoot this, blow this up and go faster than this guy, right? Like his brain is like the intricacy around how he processes, and how all these kids who play these types of games process information, make decisions, come to conclusions, solve problems is completely not how it's done in most classrooms. Yeah. And so when they're in and they're thinking like this, and the pace of your average classroom is going to just kill these kids' spirits. And that's what happens so much. And they then become the problems. They're the ones with the learning disability. They're the one, all of this stuff. And it's just because we are not prepared to teach those brains. And so we're trying to force them into the way that we taught before. And of course it's broken, and the kids are the victim. Now, it is definitely getting better, right? There are schools that are, special for kids like that. And the teachers and all these, they're getting younger now too. I mean, these people are growing up. So, but that all happened so fast. Like that was one generation where suddenly all the kids have devices. Like these kids spend too much time on they're just like, again, this is the future, like it or not. They better get good at it.
Yeah, I love it. And it's so interesting. Like I think about my youngest, and I would call myself pretty tech savvy, you know, like I'm an only child. I was always fixing the video recorder and the TV, you know, like my dad had no idea. But I see my 10-year-old with a device and the things that he can get it to do in like 3 minutes. I'm like, I didn't even know that was in there. Like, and like you say, it's the way that they're designed to think about it. So what do you reckon we can do? What do we do as parents? How can we specifically support our kids?
Well, it is that it's that fine line, because you can't just let them run amok, right? There's got to be some discipline, but parents of today really have to face the reality of what their reality is, and that it's not theirs, that they do think differently, and that they must be given the space to explore whatever their passions and interests are significantly, even if it's not the math or the science or whatever it is at the school, because it's not the world we live in. Right now, your average high schooler could probably get the same quality education as your average college student who pays tens of thousands for it by watching a series of YouTube videos in terms of how it is going to affect their ability to make a living and do what they want to do. We live in a much more efficient world. I mean, people can learn a lot. The college system, for some professions, still necessary. Many, absolutely not. And kids are over it. They're over the school. They're over the classroom. They're over the whole thing. They want to get out there and do the thing. Yeah. And they can. And we as parents and adults in society need to embrace that and need to, when a kid has a passion early, if it's a game, whatever, because that's just a symptom. That's a symptom of a way of thinking and things like that. It's like a sports. It's like kids who love baseball and their parents crush their dreams about being a baseball star. Let them have the dream, because maybe if there is a limitation, they'll realize it themselves, but something about the sport, they'll do something with the sport. But you can't just squish their dreams because you don't see how it can happen.
Yes. Oh my God, I love this. And I think it's so important. So please, all the parents out there, please pay attention, because it's, I think, one of the most important things that we've got to give to our kids. You know, I got some advice from a friend of mine. She was is a hedge fund manager. My eldest son at the time was in grade 1, so really young. And I was deciding whether or not to shift schools. And she said to me, the honest to God truth, Emma, you know, I deal with the future every single day, and education isn't where it's at. Teach your kids to be entrepreneurial and you'll be sweet. Teach them to learn, teach them to get along with people. They will be fine. And I think that, like, it's the best advice. Like, I stopped paying thousands of dollars for education and swapped Coop into a different school. And it was the best thing that we'd ever done, because we now have a 14-year-old who is like, oh, I think I might just, you know, build a little shoe business on the side so that I can pay for all the surfboards that I want to buy.
And they can.
Exactly.
And they can. That's the beauty of today. It's like the income. Nobody has to work at a freaking Burger King anymore if they don't want to. Exactly. Right? The information is out there for them to thrive, not just do okay, but really thrive. But they got to be, you know, some of them know it, some of them don't. But if we as parents can cultivate that, then we're doing them a great service, even though it's completely different than how we did it.
And that's the thing I want to ask, like, just your view on. Like, I think one of the biggest challenges is, as parents, we are so far out of our comfort zone. Like, we're actually at a time where we have to empower our children to trust themselves. And in the same breath, we're like, fuck, I actually have to trust him. I have to let him fall down, make mistakes, really learn to trust himself, because the world is moving at light speed, and let them keep up with it.
Yeah, I really feel like that's how it used to be. And then we got real, I don't want to say soft, but you know what I mean? It's like we're so protective of our kids and so like that for a few generations now, you know, and you hear all people, well, wow, when I was a kid, we had to do this. And, you know, and there's some truth to that too. So yes, letting kids make their mistakes, you know, but you're there for them. You're not going to let them kill themselves or anything like that, you know, hurting themselves. They have to take their stumbles, but you're there. But if they're stumbling towards something they really want to do, it's way different than struggling with some math class that they're never going to use, that makes them think that they're no good or that they're stupid or whatever, when it's just not what they're here for.
Yeah, I love that. So can we learn at any age? Like, is it
Yeah.
as easy for us to learn as kids as it is for us to like learn at whatever age we're at?
Well, I think the science pretty much suggests that we get less plastic as we get older, but still we can change. So while we remain not like when we're 0 to 7, there's no assessment going on. We're just yes, 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 to most everything. So there's nothing blocking it. There's nothing slowing down that process. But now as adults, we analyze everything. We have to compare it with all of our other knowledge and experience and decide whether or not this is the thing. So that slows down the process too.
Yeah.
But our brain can change. Like I said, we can learn a new language. We can learn a new procedure at work. We can learn stuff all the time. And if it learns and it becomes autopilot, it means we can change. So we can definitely change at just about any age, but we just have to be committed to the change. Is the change that we are wanting to achieve, is it worth it? Is it worth going through what we need to do?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So are there some like simple steps? So there's simple steps, actionable steps that we're doing. Like, obviously I'm hearing that word that I tell you what I battled with for years. Like, I often joke with my audience that if there was a way to create change without consistency, I would have found it. There is no way, but other than things like consistency, like what are the simple steps that we need to be aware of to rewire our brain?
Well, it is consistency. So it's about how to be creative to get people to be consistent. In my role, if I'm here to help somebody, so when we set up our system for helping people rewire their brain, we looked at, okay, there has to be something every day, but it can't take up so much time that they go, oh, I don't have time to do this. I got my life. The life is the classroom here. The content of what we teach is just like little distinctions they have, but it's mostly about utilizing your brain to get set up for the day and then to kind of resolve the day. But the idea is to make those things pleasurable. So we have point systems and everything. Every time you do a task, you get points and you can earn stuff, little things that your brain likes, little dopamine hits that, like people like to scroll. So we want to add as much of that into the learning process so that it feels fun, because it should be fun. Yeah. Because we're going to this amazing place in our lives. So the journey, again, could be fun. Now, the suffering over things along the way is optional, but we've learned it and it's autopilot, but that's another behavior we can recognize. So again, you can't avoid consistency, because if you don't consistently change your autopilot thoughts, then they're never going to change and transformation isn't going to happen. So we're just trying to make it easy for you to be consistent with the changing of the thoughts. That's why we have the quiz, so that every time you do that behavior, you recognize it in the moment, because now you've shine a light on it. It's not subconscious anymore. I mean, it may happen subconsciously, and then you go, oh, there's that thing that's wired. If you've worked with me or whatever, if you've done, you know what to do in that moment. It's not just like, oh, I've observed that I'm in autopilot. You've done some visualization. You've done maybe some journaling to get really clear on what is the behavior that the ideal version of you exhibits in this exact situation. Yeah. Because historically, I act like this and it gets a result I don't like. But now I have taken time every day, twice a day, to imagine exactly how I want to be in this and similar circumstances. And I see it through and I see the great results and I feel it and I embody it and I rehearse it over and over and over in my brain, because that's what makes your brain change. This is, we've known this about athletics for a long time, where athletes can practice in their mind, shooting that 3-pointer, and then it helps their game. So musical instruments, the same thing. And this is no different. We get to rehearse being the ideal version of ourselves for free as much as we've got time for. Mm-hmm. And to the extent that we do that, it's going to be easier out in real life to do the behavior, because we've run it. It's in your brain. Your brain is beginning to be reprogrammed with that trigger. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. And I love that. The other thing I just want to come back to is this fun piece. You said struggle is optional. And again, this is not news to my audience, but it's something that consistently I want to repeat over and over and over again. We have a choice to struggle and make things harder for ourselves. And when we look through the frame of human design, some of us have energies that are a little bit more challenging. And I mean, we've all got challenging energies, and it's the decision we make to do with that. Like I actually have this And I get that you don't know what a gate is, but I have this gate. It's called the gate of struggle. And basically, the journey within this energy is that I can choose to struggle. I can choose to be in that lower expression of being human, or I can choose to find meaning, because then all of a sudden the struggle per se is that, like, there is this greater meaning. And I know.
Well, the struggle. I'm sorry, I did not mean to interrupt.
Please jump.
But the struggle is the result of a meaning.
Yeah.
Struggle,
exactly.
Struggle is an emotional, I mean, it's like, I'm struggling. What's happening is a thing is happening. How you're responding emotionally is the struggle or the suffering. I normally say suffering is optional, because you're going to feel the negative thing. You're going to feel the struggle with the growth. But now what do you do with that emotionally? What does that struggle turn into? Does it this ongoing slow burn, or just that temporary, like, hey, I've reached a challenging point, and then you can transmute it into something else, not suffering.
Exactly. Yeah. And I love that, because for me, it's resiliency. Like, one of the things for me is I know that I'm a hugely resilient person. And the other thing that it's always taught me is, like, when challenge arises, don't struggle with it. Like, what's the freaking point? Just, here's a challenge, move through the challenge. So I think that this is the beauty of understanding that we also, I mean, the other thing I bang on about endlessly is responsibility. Like, we have a responsibility. We're here to live this life, and the meaning that we give to things is ultimately comes down to us, and being able to take responsibility for this brain, for this reality. One of the things for me, the more I've dived into quantum physics, I'm a massive Bruce Lipton fan. As I said, I've just watched this thing, and he's asked this question on this event. This guy says, so where is the line? Like, if we can create anything, and typical Bruce Lipton, he goes from cell up, like, he's literally talking about the science of how we create, how we manifest. And this guy says, like, where is the line? I mean, obviously, in a quantum reality at the highest expression, we can do anything, like fly, but where is the line here? And Bruce basically says, well, we can fly, but the issue is that we need to be able to have a community that can hold the resonance of that, whatever that belief is. And it's really what you're saying as well, is like, we need to be conscious of the belief systems that we're creating, what we believe in. And have we flipped into a wizard where we're no longer serving ourselves, like we're trying to believe in things that we're not there yet? Or are we making the choice to go, well, look, hey, one day I might like to fly, for example. So who would I be? Well, I would have to start to believe in these little things before I could ever get to the big thing. I would have to have a community around me that believes in that. So I have to give up my people pleasing, or, those sort of things. Do you want to talk to that a little bit? I know it's a bit out there, but I'd love to hear your opinion.
Well, it just speaks to that we can learn anything. I mean, it's just, but it's not an overnight thing. And you have to have the experiences to make those wiring changes. Takes time. It is biology, and it takes time. You were talking about the Titanic before, and it's like that slow to turn. To this day, I'm a slow turner, like during the course of the day. And what I mean by that is this: if a change of plans comes up, like if I know what my day is, I know what my schedule is, and then it's like something as simple as, hey, we got to get on the phone with so-and-so right now. It just came up. It is like taking the Titanic and turning it 180 degrees. It takes me so long to shift from I am on this track to over here, and it feels impossible. But then when I'm there, I'm fine. It's in the flow. So it's just that. And this is my point. It's like making that change is the uncomfortable part, but then you get a new momentum. Then your wiring kind of shifts over here, and the suffering it's not like I can't, every single time I suffer over something like that, oh, I have to change this plan, and I get on the phone, it's like, that was the silliest, goofiest reaction. This is nothing, but that's my wiring. And so but just knowing that is, it can be a natural part of it depending on how you're wired, that discomfort, that I don't want to do that thing, that's normal. That's normal and totally fine. It doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. And I promise you, the more you do the thing, the easier it will be, just like any other habit.
Yeah, I love it. And I think that's a beautiful place to kind of round things up a little bit, because I feel like we've covered so much. I love these archetypes. I love anything that helps us make the unconscious blocking thing more conscious so that we can make choices.
Yeah.
So where can people find you? Where can people find this quiz exactly? Obviously, we'll have everything in the show notes, but tell us a bit about where we can do the quiz.
Sure. Well, the quiz you can get directly to with tptquiz.com for transformation personality type quiz, tptquiz.com. But you can find the quiz and all other things Bob Doyle at meetbobdoyle.com. That'll link you out to all my socials, and I'm super easy to find on Facebook, Instagram, any of that stuff. I've been out there for a hot minute.
Yes, you have indeed. And on that note, like, I get that there's probably thousands of people who've had a similar experience to me, maybe millions, that, you know, to have the opportunity just to say thank you, because you are one of those people that have been part of the catalyst to really build who I am today. I'm incredibly grateful. And I'm so grateful that you've been on the podcast and that we've been able to have this chat, because you really are an inspiring human. So thank you so much for joining me.
Well, that is super nice of you to say. It was my pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for listening. And I look forward to having you on the next podcast. Bye for now. Thanks everyone for being here all the way to the end of the podcast. I hope you got lots of value out of it. I certainly had a lot of fun doing it. Could I please ask that you share this podcast with friends if you found it valuable? And also, bonus points, could you leave a review for me as well on Apple? It would be greatly appreciated. If at any point you would like to be on the podcast, or you've got questions that you'd like me to discuss on the podcast, by all means, get on my socials and DM me. Everything you need is there in the show notes. Have an awesome day. Bye for now.